Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone's enjoying that brisk spring weather out there this morning. Thank you for taking the time to tune in. As many of you are aware, Amanda and I, we do specialize in multifamily investment properties. In doing so, we often get to work with great companies who specialize in managing those for clients. Today, we're thrilled to invite Tate from JDN Property Management on today. We're going to discuss a few landlord and tenant questions, and specifically how JDN is doing during these times with landlords and tenants. So Tate, I'd like to welcome you in here.
I'm really happy to be here. I think this is a great idea that you're doing this.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's great, and I know we have lots of mutual clients. So it's great that we can bring this resource out and talk a little bit about what landlords and tenants are doing during these difficult times. So thank you again. I really appreciate coming on.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure.
Yeah, so let's dive right into this. So first, let's talk a bit about yourself, what you do at JDN, and what JDN offers, as a landlord solution. Let's talk a little bit about that first.
Sure. We actually have basically three packages that we offer. So one is focused around those individuals who don't necessarily want a property management company to manage, but they want us to take advantage of our expertise in finding tenants and vetting tenants. So it's kind of basically just a rental only arrangement where, we'll do the advertising, we do the showings, we accept the applications and vet those applications, accept the LMRs, the last month rent deposits, and make sure that the person that we're going to be putting in place is going to be one that we would want in our own homes. Okay, when we look at the properties that we look after, whether it's a rental only or a full management package, we look at it in terms of, this was my home, who do I want living there? The main package that we offer, what we call the plus package, again, we do the rental, so we look after finding the right tenant for the property, but we also look after rent collections, maintenance issues, any kind of concerns that the tenants have, we respond to. Really pretty much anything that would need to be taken care of by a landlord, we can look after that ourselves. Not to be crude, but we can actually create a situation whereby a property owner doesn't do anything but waits once a month to collect their rent revenue from us, and we look after everything else.
So that's nice. There's a few different options depending on how hands-on that owner wants to be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that's great. So let's dive a little bit in here and discuss. Obviously COVID-19. I'm sure it's really changed the way that you guys are doing business, as well as landlords and tenants. It's definitely changed the front for that. So let's talk a little bit about the kind of changes JDN's seen and the changes that you guys are taking in the business.
So a lot of fear, a lot of concerns, both from property owners that we work with, as well as tenants. Basically all focused around the same thing. What's going to be going on with rent? What happens to me as a tenant if I can't come up with rent because I'm out of work right now because of lockdowns? And for property owners, as I mentioned earlier, the vast majority are kind of families that have an investment property, and they're trying to kind of create a better situation for their families. So how are they going to come up with the rent revenue that they depend on? We handled this, I think, very well. We were very proactive. We paid attention to the news. As information became available, we forwarded emails off to every single tenant, and we've got like 1,200 tenants. So we forwarded off information to all of these tenants. Here's what's being announced by the Prime Minister. Here's a link to the government website. Here's a link to directly to the CERB application. So we're making it as simple for the tenants as possible to try to take advantage of those opportunities that are being presented. Similarly, we give that same information to the property owners proactively, as well as other information that's more specific to them. When there was discussion around refer or deferments for mortgages, that sort of thing. The most recent would be the program that the government has come up with for commercial landlords having to deal with commercial rent, because that's a whole different ball game there.
Yeah, yeah. So the big thing is, proactive, being aware. You guys have your finger on the pulse here, so you can try and stay one step ahead, which is really important. Especially to make that landlord-tenant relationship, continue on smoothly. So that's great. Now, next question. We've now have a couple months under our belt since the whole, beginning of the pandemic. So 2 rent collection months. Have you seen things get worse? Do you expect they're going to get worse in terms of trying to collect those rents? What are your predictions with that?
Actually, we've been fairly lucky so far. For the most part, again, because of this proactive approach that we've taken, we were able to help tenants get the money that they needed in hand. Now, we obviously held off on doing any kind of legal action against anyone who was late in April. We held off on that so that we could give these tenants the opportunity to collect those CERB payments. That paid off for us. What we ended up with was a situation where almost all rent was collected during the month of April.
Oh, that's incredible.
Yeah, it didn't show up April 1st, obviously, but it showed up. Okay, and so the property owners were able to take advantage of that. May, we're kind of seeing the same thing. Some people are holding off because they're waiting on their second installation of CERB payments and so on and so forth. So right now things seem to be going pretty smoothly. Okay, not nearly as bad as I was worried that it might be. I am concerned come August, September, as I mentioned earlier. What's going to happen for those people who don't have a job to return to if the lockdown is kept in place for too much longer? Those people are going to be presumably without a CERB payment to back them up. And because of the potential business closures, potentially out of work. So
yeah,
I think that's the next phase that we have to look at.
Yeah, because the CERB payment, if I'm correct, is 4 months.
Yeah. So August will be covered now, on that.
Yeah. Now there's no mandate when you collect the CERB payment that it's to go towards your rent or anything like that. Is that correct?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
But I wouldn't necessarily want to share that with anyone.
Yeah.
It's better to take advantage of this money and
absolutely
keep everything on par, right?
Yeah. Now let's talk. You say there's tenants in a property that don't qualify for the CERB, or they're unable to pay the rent. What action is going to happen after? Well, once things get back to somewhat normal, what option do landlords have in trying to recoup the lost income?
There's a few things. First off, CERB doesn't cover everyone. Those individuals that I've noticed most who don't seem to be getting the same level of coverage are students. Students who have been working, they can do all right under CERB, but those students who maybe weren't working and thus not meeting the requirements of CERB, there was a few of those who were running into some challenges, but the government has stepped up and offered an additional plan that seems to be compensating for that. Down the road, though, so let's say there might be 1 or 2 individuals, and I mean that, to be honest with you, most everyone that we are working with seems to be getting some funds in from someone. But let's say there are 1 or 2 that don't qualify for anything for some reason, okay? I think ideally what I would be looking at if we wandered into that scenario is I would be looking to try to make a deal with those tenants, maybe to end the tenancy early. The reality is if someone falls a month behind, you can recover. 2, 3, potentially 4, who knows how this lockdown is going to last. You're not going to recover from that.
No.
So for a property owner's best interest, And frankly, for a tenant's best interest, it might be better to negotiate an early end to that tenancy. The tenant's advantage is, they're not walking into September, October with, several months worth of debt, collection agencies, all of that nonsense. And the benefit to the landlord is, instead of having to wait and take a more aggressive approach through LTV, such as evictions and so forth, and still not getting any of that money back, okay? It might be better off to negotiate an early end to that tenancy and then find a new tenant, okay? One who is in a better shape and able to cover those rents. And so the owner, is going to take a small loss in those types of unique scenarios. But I'd rather take a small loss than a huge loss.
Yeah.
And again, the tenant benefits as well. You may end up having to move back in with the family for a little while. Not fun. I get it. But certainly cheaper than, now I've got a bad credit score. Now I've got collections chasing after me. Now there's, a very public eviction on my LTV record. It's better than all of that.
Yeah. Now, do you, I know the landlord-tenant, tribunal's not in operation right now.
Mm.
Are there steps that landlords should be taking right now for, in the event when it does open back up, for eviction? Say you were dealing with an issue before COVID. How does that work?
Yeah, I actually have one of those issues. We had an individual, still have an individual that was behind in rent before the COVID situation kicked in. To be honest with you, you're not going to see any benefit from the LTV anytime soon. They were behind 3 months to begin with. Now with COVID, you're looking at 6 months, possibly even longer. So in my opinion, I think the best approach, like I say, is to try to negotiate with the tenant to see what options are available. If we can set up a payment plan and work through that, great. If we can, look at possibly ending a tenancy early, again, it's a gamble, but that might be the best way to go in the long term, even though, like I say, no one's going to win quickly on it. But the reality is if you've got a tenant who's behind by a few months, okay, and while the tenant I'm thinking of was behind only by 1 month prior to COVID, now we're looking at several months. By the time an LTV hearing kicks in, you're looking at the better part of a year. You're not going to get all that back. Certainly not at once. Even if you go through a collection agency, you're losing 40%, and you're looking at nickel and dimes coming in. Okay, if it comes in at all. So in those types of scenarios, it may be better off to simply look at those tenants and say, hey, this isn't going to work. It's going to be bad news for you at the end of all of this, really bad news. So how about we negotiate, an early into the tenancy? Hopefully that works. It's not a guarantee.
Yeah. Now, let's switch gears a bit. I'm sure you guys are, having to still continue to, maintain units, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
How does access go during COVID? For a couple of reasons. For maintenance, going in for maintenance, and then also let's talk about, say, properties for sale and wants to show the property. How does that work? What are the tenants' rights there?
That's kind of up in the air. To be honest with you, I think our approach has been pretty effective, which is we reach out to those tenants that we might have some concerns about. Tenants who have reached out to us and express concerns about maintenance coming in, or rental agents coming in, or sales agents coming in on behalf of the property owners. What we do is we equip our people, so our rental agents, our maintenance technicians, with masks, hand sanitizers, gloves, little disposable suits, like full body disposable suits, so that they can avoid contamination, right? So we don't want them picking up something, but we also don't want them then passing it on to another tenant. Okay.
Mhm.
So we've been really filtering out those maintenance jobs that have to happen from those maintenance jobs that would be nice. Okay. The
Yeah.
door handle's falling off my cabinet. I'd like to get that repaired. Yeah, that's nice. And we certainly want to do that. But is that door handle really worth the risk of spread, right?
Yeah.
So we kind of filter out what needs to be done right now versus what can maybe wait a couple more weeks. And then, like I say, we reach out to the tenants. We talk about options. Okay, can we set up a showing at 2 o'clock? Is there any way that maybe you can hang out in the backyard for a little while? Okay. We also do virtual showings. So our rental agents, equipped with their cell phones and digital cameras, go around to
Yeah.
some of these places and just do a video showing, okay, and present that to applicants as kind of a precursor. If the applicant isn't interested, maybe there's something in the house that they see that they simply don't want, okay, well then now you don't have to worry about finding that out during a showing. You can
Mhm.
kind of keep that contamination at bay.
No, that's smart. We have a very similar approach as well, with any buyers, necessary,
Mm.
using that technology, and technology is great when it works. When it works.
Whatever. Yeah.
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 So, last question I have for you. I know you guys also manage commercial properties. Are you seeing any difference in the sense, with the residential versus commercial, tenants paying rent? Are the rules different? You have any comments on that?
Yeah. So the rules are very different. Um, so the problem that a lot of yeah, it's hard to
That's a loaded question there.
yeah. Yeah. The problem that commercial tenants have is they're not getting the same support from the government as residential tenants. As a residential tenant, if I'm not working, I can apply to CERB. I can get my $2,000, and aside from dealing with the crazy of having to be around my family 24/7, I can pay my rent. I can buy my groceries.
Yeah,
I can do all of these things.
yeah,
But for some commercial businesses that maybe weren't equipped or weren't prepared for this kind of scenario, okay, and I'm thinking of restaurants that don't have a takeout or delivery option as a prime example, they're essentially closing their doors. There's no revenue coming in, so there's no way for them to make a rent payment, okay. Um, the government's approach so far seems to be focusing on the landlords, which is, in my opinion, rather odd. And that approach seems to be focused on the landlords being willing to take a very significant hit, dropping what they expect for rent revenue down by 50%. Okay, in order to get like a 25% bump from the government. Well, that's great, but assuming you can get through all the paperwork and meet all the eligibility and so on and so forth, you're now looking at receiving 75%, but you're still dealing with a commercial unit that has no revenue.
mhm,
So, great, you've made a discount for the commercial tenant, but the commercial tenant has no revenue.
yeah,
Um, because the laws are different, this puts commercial tenants at a huge risk. They don't have to wait for an LTB to come up to have their doors closed. Okay, and we've seen that recently in the news as well, where something goes wrong and then suddenly, you know, you end up having your doors closed.
yeah,
So right now, what we've been doing is really working with the owners to kind of respond to their situation, providing them with as much information as we can to help them try to offset costs through various government programs, such as the rent mortgage deferrals and so on and so forth.
yeah.
But it's far more difficult for commercial tenants than it is for residential tenants right now.
Yeah, yeah. No, we're definitely seeing the same.
Mm.
It's scary.
Yeah.
Now I think we've pretty much covered a lot of the questions we have here. Is there any comments you'd like to make? Anything we've missed? What are your predictions? You're your boots on the ground there. I'd love to hear your predictions of what you foresee coming over the next few months.
I honestly expect that we're going to start seeing a reversal in terms of the lockdown. This is one of those things I can spend 3 hours talking about, and anyone who knows me knows I can't answer a question briefly if my life depended on it. I think the lockdown is going to slowly start coming to an end. I think there's a lot of pressure on the government in terms of the impact this is having on the economy. It's a catch-22, right? I mean, on one hand, we have to look after the safety of our people. On the other hand, the economy is completely offset by that. So it's like, which volcano do you want to jump in, this one or that? But I think the lockdown is going to slowly start to come to an end. I do believe that's going to happen over the next month and a half. I'd like to see that happen. It won't completely come to an end. I think we're going to be entering into a new world, period. But hopefully we can get the lockdown brought down quickly for those businesses that are risking permanent shutdown. Because with a permanent shutdown, as I mentioned to you before the webinar, with a permanent shutdown, you're looking at a lot of employees who are going to end up with no CERB at the end of August and no revenue from employment. And that's going to be the next big challenge for property owners.
Yeah. Well, it's Tate, I really, really appreciate you taking the time coming on here today and answering these questions and providing your professional expert opinion. I really do appreciate it. I'm going to share your information. Yeah, I'm going to share your information on the post here. In the event anyone is looking for a property management company, highly suggest that I reach out to these guys at JDN. Like I said, we've got many clients. I'm very happy. So thank you. Thank you for taking the time coming on here.
Oh, my pleasure. And yes, everybody give us a call. We're the best. I'm a little behind. Fair enough.
Love it. Well, I'll put your information on this, and thank you again. And hopefully in the future, we'll continue to do these and bring more information to people, from your side of the business. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks.
Awesome.
You have a great day.
You have a great day, Tate. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.